If you take the red jelly bean, it'll open your mind up to the truths about finance. But if you take the blue jelly bean, your life will go back to normal as if nothing has changed. That speech is a bit of a cliche though, isn't it? Yeah, probs. Is there really some secret that's going to unlock my mind about financial independence? Well, it's not really a secret. Everyone knows what to do. They just kind of don't do it. Thought so. Hey, can I have both of them? I'm a little hungry. Thanks. A lot of the information that we're taught about money is wrong.
The general consensus is that you do your best in school, get good grades so you can get a good job, buy a house, buy a car, buy furniture, buy new clothes, find a partner, have a big wedding, have kids, buy baby furniture, buy a bigger car, renovate the house, spend on good schools, send them to university, buy a caravan, travel around a bit, and finally, when you're 60, retire and hope that you've paid the house off by then.
So more and more people are realizing that what we're being told about money doesn't always get you ahead financially. So right now there's this movement, a group of people that don't want to follow this path. They want to change their lifestyles and retire early and reach financial independence as fast as possible so they don't have to worry about money in the future. And whether you want to retire early or not, we can actually learn a lot from them. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the lessons that the f.i.r.e movement can teach us all about money.
We've all heard that we should be living below our means, spending less than we earn, but many people just don't or can't. In fact, the majority of people, 4 out of 5 in the US, according to this CNBC article, are living paycheck to paycheck, and I imagine it's similar here in Australia. And it's not just the lower class or those living close to the poverty line as you would think. It's people who can afford to cut back but choose a certain lifestyle.
Now, it's one thing if your circumstances dictate what you can afford or not, but it's quite another if changing your spending patterns is really going to impact and change your financial future.
In the 1996 book The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley and William Danko, they discovered it wasn't always the people who owned big houses and flashy cars who were actually rich. It could be anyone, even your neighbour. And one of the secrets to these invisible rich people was the fact that they were frugal, living well below their means and saving and investing the majority of their money.
It's a concept that's carried on into the f.i.r.e movement, where some of the people can save up to 50% of their income, some even save up to 80% of their income.
Saving that much, of course, isn't always realistic for those on low incomes, which is why many encourage side hustles for extra income and use the entirety of that side income in building their wealth.
So most critics of the f.i.r.e movement argue that living frugally sucks all the joy out of life, and why would anyone choose to want to live that way? If you earn money, why not just spend it and enjoy your life? But if you look at the reality of people following the f.i.r.e movement, frugality doesn't always look that way. It's not something that's sucking the joy out of life.
Mr. Money Mustache, a popular blogger in the f.i.r.e niche, is always talking about his extravagant lifestyle, which, when he posts his yearly spending, is actually quite small comparatively.
So if you're smart and resourceful, it's entirely possible to live an amazing life without having to spend on everything all of the time. Many of us are extremely lucky to live in a part of the world where we can do things for free or really low cost that brings tremendous enjoyment.
I can go and check council listings for free concerts in my area. They have fireworks in the city at numerous times of the year here, including New Year's Eve. I can go to my local library and borrow books or movies, sometimes without having to leave my actual house since they have so many ebooks as well now. I live near beaches, parks, any number of places that I can meet up with friends.
All for free, and that's not something I take for granted. Being frugal is just about choosing where you want to spend your money and not just spending it mindlessly everywhere. It's about priorities. So what can we all take away from this lesson? It's that the constant consumption, the constant upgrading, the getting the newest thing, having all of the things is not always making us happier, at least not in the long term anyway. But spending intentionally rather than mindlessly means that we've got more money to save and invest for our future. Now, it doesn't matter if you want to retire early or you just want to build your savings and investments to have that financial security. Because it's not about how much you earn, it's about how much you save and invest. And that's something we should all be doing. So what are some actionable tips that we can do right now?
We need to aim to save more and more of our income, to challenge ourselves. You want to see how little you can actually spend without making yourself miserable. I always do a no-spend month every year, not only because it saves me money, although that's a nice bonus, but because it resets my mindset about spending. If I can go a whole month without all of the things that I think I need, I can probably go a lot longer too. Make it a game if you like. Make it fun. It's not about depriving yourself. It's about finding what makes you happy and getting rid of the rest.
Now, the whole retire early is the part of the f.i.r.e. movement that most people seem to have a problem with. Now, it's understandable. We've all been told that retiring is something we do at the end of our working career.
Then you are supposed to spend the rest of your days pottering around the house, giving your grandkids sweet treats when their parents aren't watching. And while the word retire does mean to stop doing, to withdraw from something, it doesn't always have to mean the workplace overall.
But that's missing the point of what the f.i.r.e. movement is about. It's not so much about the race to be financially independent so that you can give up work and travel and mooch around for the rest of your life, but it's about the choice and freedom that being financially independent allows you to make. There's no question that certain careers give people value. It's their contribution to the world, their way to give back. It's also a way to connect with others for a lot of people. The socialization aspect is very important. Or it could be just that people enjoy doing what they do.
I know I certainly don't want doctors or engineers or firefighters or teachers leaving their jobs early. But for many in those careers, it's unlikely that they would anyway, because people who pursue these jobs, they usually do so for the value they get from them.
But not all jobs are like that, and not all people feel valued where they work.
And as we get older, we're not always valued in the workplace as we would like.
A good question to ask yourself is, if you won the lottery tomorrow, would you still turn up to work the next day? While a lot of people would leave, some wouldn't.
This Sydney woman won $107 million earlier this year and said it would actually drive her to do more healthcare work. A construction worker in New York won $140 million last year, and he still turned up to work because he liked working.
So when money is no longer a factor, some people choose to leave their work, some people choose to stay, and some people choose to move to something that's more meaningful for them. Even the person who retires and gives up work entirely doesn't always just sit around doing nothing. Most people in the f.i.r.e. movement have passions and hobbies and things that they want to do that's away from the regular 9 to 5. And some of these passions give tremendous value and worth, not only to themselves, but to the wider community as well.
Human beings are meant to have a purpose.
So just because you retire early doesn't mean you're really giving up work, unless that's a choice that you want to make. It just means that you'll have the financial means to pursue whatever is important to you. So what can we take away from this? What can we learn? So the race to financial independence really is about getting to that point where you have choice and freedom. It's not always about retiring from work completely. Now, for some people it might be, but I think for the vast majority of people who do the f.i.r.e. movement, it's about reaching a point where you're no longer told what you have to do, but you can make the decision about what you want to do. I mean, even just putting a plan into place to retire early can be a worthwhile purpose. And isn't having a purpose the whole point? So what actionable steps can we do?
Start thinking about how you want to live in the future. Not necessarily when you finally retire, but in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, and so on. Make goals. Thinking about retirement as something far into the future that won't affect you now isn't the right way to think about it. Plan to build a life that you love and find a purpose, something that makes you happy. How much is that life going to cost you? Start building your savings and investments towards that future goal, whether that's sooner or later.
So the path to f.i.r.e. or financial independence isn't the same for everyone, because there's so many different ways to build wealth. However, most people in the f.i.r.e. community will agree that just keeping your money in savings means that you're going to be saving for a very long time. In Australia, you'll be lucky to get anything above 2% as an interest rate, although most accounts are 0.
With the Reserve Bank continuing to lower interest rates, it means that the savings rates are less than the inflation rates right now. So having your money in savings is costing you long term.
So the trick instead is to put your money where it's going to grow at a faster rate, and that usually means either stocks or property.
The stock market average return is nearly always higher than property, although property is easier to leverage. Although property, if it's for investment purposes, does come with other costs and dealing with maintenance and tenants, whereas the stock market does not, it's entirely passive. Most in the f.i.r.e. community like a nice simple index fund or exchange traded fund. That's the simplest way to get access to a diversified portfolio with low fees.
Now, I'm more an individual stock girl myself, but that's entirely a personal preference. The importance is to put your money into something solid that's going to grow your money faster. I particularly like dividend stocks because I like putting my money into income producing assets. And you can also get dividend ETFs and LICs too. So that way your average return is going to be closer to 6 to 10%, depending on where you put your money. And yes, those are averages and they take into account both good and bad years in both the property and stock market.
So let's say that you're aiming for a sum of $1 million. This would give you roughly an income of $40,000 to $50,000 a year, depending on how you structured your portfolio. You start from zero and then save $2,000 a month. Now, that might be a stretch, but it might depend on your income. The average wage in Australia right now is $1,634 a week, which works out at around $7,080 a month. That means you'd be left with over $5,000 a month to live on. And if there are two of you, it'll be even easier. So $2,000 a month at an average 10% return. So if you're starting out when you're 20, you could potentially reach this at 36. If you're starting when you're 30, you could potentially reach this at 46. Although the point I really wanted to make is to focus on the compound interest. In this case, you've only contributed $394,163 of your own money. The rest, the final $605,837, is the interest or the increase in value of your portfolio of your fund, whatever you've chosen to invest in.
It's the compound interest that's done the majority of work in building your wealth faster. So what can we learn from this? So the main reason that people are able to retire early is because their money is growing and compounding without them having to do as much work. Keeping your money in a savings account right now could mean that you're going backwards because the rate of inflation is actually higher than most savings accounts now. So you want to be smarter. And while interest rates on bank accounts might actually go up, I doubt they'll reach the levels of property and stocks. That'd be great though, wouldn't it? If interest rates on a regular bank account was up about 10%. It's never going to happen. So what actionable steps can we take from this?
While you should have some money in savings that you need to access quickly, such as your emergency fund, the rest, the money that you're not going to need within the next 5 years or more, should be going into stocks, either directly or through funds, or investment property if that's your jam. In Australia, we're quite lucky that we have a lot of high dividend companies here. It's not too hard to find those paying above 5%. So if you go this way, you can actually be building an income right from the start if you wanted to. Decide where you want to put your money and start building up your wealth, and let the compound interest move things along quicker so you don't have to do all of the savings.
The FIRE movement actually follows a lot of the wisdom that we've been told for years. Live below your means, plan for the future, and let compound interest do most of the work for you. So it's not really a new concept. The whole retire early thing is, although we have established not to take that too literally. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and it's inspired to start thinking about your financial future. Thanks so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!